Come, Ray. The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win. Now the 2-1. Line drive to the base. Justice has scored the tying run. Green to the plate. And he is safe. Safe at the plate. The Braves go to the World Series.
Have reserved seats somewhere along one of the baselines that sat when they were children and cheered their heroes.
Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable!
A 3-run home run for Bucky Dent. The Yankees now lead by a score of 3-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mazeroski has hit a 1-0 pitch over the left field fence at Ford Field to win the 1960 World Series.
They'll arrive at your door as innocent as children, longing for the past.
The Pope arrived at Yankee Stadium. As one enthusiastic announcer put it, he is standing on second base.
Reggie Jackson. Long drive right field. It is goodbye. Big World Series for Reggie Jackson.
The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run.
Back and throws. There's a left back. It's going to be, I believe, the Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant. The Giants from the pennant.
The 0-1 pitch. A liner off Nagy's glove into center field. The Florida Marlins have won the World Series.
The memories will be so thick that I can brush them with my faces.
The 1-0 delivery to Fisk. He swings long drive left field. If it stays fair, it's gone. Home run. The Red Sox win. And the series is...
Lolich fires. Ball is hit high in the air. This should be the series. Freehand waving everybody away in foul territory. Detroit wins. Here's the pitch to Willie. Here's a liner straight to Richardson. The ball game is over and the World Series is over. Willie McCovey hit it like a bullet. A line drive right.
Baseball to mark the time.
The Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we haven't heard.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Candlestick Park for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series.
It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again.
Frank Robinson got in better.
Long drive to left field. Way back. This is goodbye.
Base hit loaded, 1 out. Pena in a jam. The Twins are going to win the World Series. The Twins have won it.
Ozzie with 1 out. Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. It's a home run. And the
Willie Mays just brought this crowd to its feet with a catch, which must have been an optical illusion to a lot of people.
This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again.
Broadcasted live.
Hey! Who wants to have some fun?
There are balls coming from all over the place. Left field, center field, right field. See, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, right now, that makes you want to see the Chicago Cubs team lose.
Now, are you just saying you want to have fun, or do you really want to have fun?
It'll be fun.
Will the next person that sees anybody throw anything onto this field, point them out, and get them out of here. You don't live in Cleveland. You live in Cincinnati.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That is the farthest thing in the universe from the truth.
Hello, everyone, live. It's the Dan Scott Show. And right there is your host, Dan Scott.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the program. I am Dan Scott. That is Forrest Stulting. All the right buttons are pushed this time. All of the feeds are live and staying live.
We hope.
We hope for the moment, and we are ready to go. Good to have you with us on a foggy, hazy, overcast day here in the upstate of South Carolina. Citadel Week continues here on the campus of Furman University. Big football game coming up for the Paladins this weekend in the home finale, and we're going to be talking more about it as we go on through the course of the show, among some other things. How are you, sir?
Oh, doing well, Dan. Hope you are too.
I was fine until I hit the wrong button again on the feed right before the show started, but
we're not perfect.
Yeah,
so.
Well, we proved that a long time ago. In any event, this happens from time to time, and Forrest was quick to point out, well, it's been a while when I did it a moment ago, but those of you who've ever done Facebook Live via the computer, there's a big red button at the bottom that says finish. Well, I was typing in like I try to every morning, welcoming everybody and encouraging folks to share the post on Facebook Live and the link to help us grow the audience. And I have this habit occasionally of, instead of hitting the enter button, to clicking send in my mind.
It makes sense. It's big, red, and flashy. It's very attractive. So
yeah, but instead of clicking send, I click finish, which kills the feed, and I had to start the whole process over again. But we got it. We are here and ready to go for the next hour, which what we believe is going to be a good show. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to talk about Furman's advancement in the polls after the off week this past Saturday. It was still a little baffling coaches poll result. But
as it always is.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. A lot of college football news that we can get into as well. Something you don't see on the screen that we'll try to spend a little bit of time on is some pretty interesting breaking news out of Atlanta with the Georgia Tech basketball program and some hot water that Josh Pastner may be in as the head coach with the Yellow Jackets. Major League Baseball award finalists were announced yesterday, and what used to be called the Veterans Committee, now the ERA Committee, ERA, has put out its list of 9 players and 1 executive candidates to be voted into the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that. And if he gets out of a meeting in time, Brian Bratton will join us here in studio to lend the former player perspective, now, of course, the wide receivers coach and Furman Hall of Famer on Citadel Week in that rivalry.
Absolutely. He's one of the greatest wide receivers in Furman history. Enjoyed some good playing time in the CFL in Canada. I'm looking forward to having him up here if we can get him.
Have you ever seen his Grey Cup championship rings?
I have not, actually. Are they pretty ginormous?
They are as ritzy and as glitzy and as glamorous as any Super Bowl ring you'll ever see.
Hopefully I'll bring him up here.
Yeah, I don't know if he carries them around in his pocket with him, but he has showed them to me before, especially the first one when he won the first one and with the Montreal Alouettes. That was pretty cool. It's a pretty significant piece of hardware.
Oh, I'm sure it weighs a few pounds.
Yeah, I mean, if you put straps on either side of it, you'd have a wrestling championship belt.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty significant.
That's good stuff.
Anyway, before we get to the polls, before we get to Citadel Week, before we get to any of the other stuff, we always try to start, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, always try to start with a little bit of news of what's going on campus here at Furman to give all of our Furman teams some recognition, a little bit of love, and then we go deeper into some of the other topics in the world of sports, both locally, regionally, statewide, and nationally, which is a little bit of everything we have planned here today. But let's start with what's going on here on campus.
It's going to be a pretty quiet night for the Paladins this evening. Nothing happened last night or this evening, but I want to raise some notes about some games and events coming up this Friday afternoon and evening. The cross-country team, they will compete in the NCAA Southeast Regional in Charlottesville, Virginia on Friday. So they're looking forward to hopefully finishing in the top 4, moving on to the championships the following week in Louisville, Kentucky. The men's soccer team, they will play UNC Greensboro in the semifinals of the SoCon tournament. That'll be right here at Stone Soccer Stadium at 6 o'clock on Friday evening. And men's basketball, they tip off their season they tip off their basketball season this Friday night at Timmons Arena against Bob Jones at 7 o'clock. So be sure to come out and see all these Paladins in action this Friday evening at 6 o'clock at Stone Soccer Stadium, and then come over to Timmons Arena for the Bob Jones Furman first game of the year for the Paladins.
Yeah, the home game at Timmons, the season opener, will be a radio broadcast setup, but we will be streaming it live with a 2-camera shoot to the SoCon Digital Network, and that's because of all the personnel needed for the conference soccer tournament, which is here on campus.
It's also a volleyball game on that Friday evening as well.
And then starting on Tuesday with the Elon game, all of the home games the rest of the season will be ESPN3 broadcast, which of course will be simulcast on the radio. Bryant Lambert will be joining me for the men's ESPN3 broadcasts this year, and then Tom Van Hoy obviously will be with me on the road for the schedule like he was a year ago.
It's going to be a lot of fun, Dan. Looking forward to hopefully a really successful basketball season for Coach Ritchie and all the young studs on that team.
Yep. Watched a few minutes of practice yesterday, and they are physically a good-looking bunch. We recorded, in fact, the fifth episode of the All Den podcast, and Jeff Beans was the player that we used in our Getting to Know You segment. And like Daniel Fowler, like Devin Sibley, we talked about what these kids came in looking like as freshmen, body type, and how they've changed. The body fat going away and the muscle building and
muscle tone, especially.
It's been a pretty phenomenal piece of work by the strength and conditioning staff, and to see these guys transform over the years has been pretty cool.
And I'll say this too, that I've been asking this for a few years now, but someone needs to come to the Furman home basketball games in a bean outfit, like a baked bean, a lima bean, any kind of bean you got. Just come in a bean costume, and let's rain some threes for Jeff Beans.
Well, I have I can't speak to the costume, but I know that personally, I decided this is freshman year that anytime he hits 3 3-pointers consecutively, in other words, he doesn't miss a shot in between them.
Yep.
But if he hits 3 consecutively, on the third one, I give it a garbanzo.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Garbanzo beans. So,
all right.
But, it has to be 3.
Yeah.
It has to be 3 straight that he hits. That and $1 will get you a cup of coffee, depending on where you buy your coffee. What's the trivia question? Drew Tibbs is fired up, man. He wants to know what the trivia question is.
Let's do it. All right, let's see. Trivia question for today is obviously going to involve Furman and the Citadel, and I have 4 good ones lined up for the rest of the week. So we're going to pick one of them today, and the first one is going to be: when was the most recent season in which Furman and the Citadel did not play?
The most recent season that Furman and the Citadel did not play.
Yep.
Wow, that's a good question.
What year was that?
I'm going to guess a long time ago.
Took some research.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Okay. The most recent season, basically the last time Furman and Citadel did not play during a football season. It's a good question.
Yeah,
We'll see if we get any good answers. You can leave your answers in the Facebook Live comments section. Your guesses there are on the Twitter Periscope feed. Hit us up on Twitter at Dan Scott Show, and we'll announce the answer at the end of the program. We'll take our first break, come back, and start getting into the meat of the program, including some thoughts on where Furman is in the latest polls that came out FCS-wise yesterday. And also, don't forget, tonight is round 2 of the playoff committee's polls.
Or week 2.
Yeah, well, round 2, week 2, same thing. We'll get maybe a little preview of that as well coming up. But as we head out to the break, just a reminder about our friends at the Atlanta Bread Company, located in Cherrydale Plaza, right down the road here from campus, where I eat breakfast there several mornings during the week, usually 3 or 4 mornings. It's just a great time for me to go in and kind of get my thoughts together, enjoy a great cup of coffee along with the turkey sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich I get on honey wheat toast, in case you were wondering.
I was actually.
See, now you know. And you can also, of course, go for lunch or dinner, and they have plenty of specials going on, including right now, seasonally, they've got the turkey cranberry sandwich with the cranberries baked right into the bread. It's not going to be around much past Thanksgiving, so you need to jump on that now. And with the weather turning cooler, always remind you the hot foods, the hot chili soups, sandwiches, things that really feel good, a bevy of hot drinks for you. Great place, better people. The Atlanta Bread Company, Cherrydale Plaza in Greenville, right down the road from campus. We'll step out for the break, come back, and get this thing rolling right after this. Don't go away.
Looking for a good lunch spot in the Traveler's Rest area? The Cafe at Williams Hardware is your place. Williams Hardware has food for the whole family, from the famous Reuben to the barbecue chicken quesadilla and their daily lunch specials, which includes the award-winning BLT unpimiented cheese with pepper jelly, served Tuesday to Thursday. Williams Hardware also serves breakfast on Saturdays from 8 to 11, perfect before Furman home game. And don't forget the gift shop, which offers items for anyone on your list. Go see your friends at the Cafe at Williams Hardware, 13 South Main Street in downtown TR. Full menu and operating hours at the Cafe at WilliamsHardware.com.
So you've got a busted phone or tablet screen. Time to get a new device? Nope. Time to give it CPR. CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale can repair almost any phone or tablet screen on the market and usually can do it same day. In fact, if you have an iPhone, the fix usually takes less than an hour. CPO Cell Phone Repair also can fix computers and gaming systems, both screens and hard drives. And they sell refurbished devices and new accessories. Stop by and see the new owner, Janet Culver, today, and check them out on Facebook. That's CPR Cell Phone Repair at Cherrydale, 864-282-9097. Give it CPR today.
Hey Furman fans, it's baseball season. Here at Ingalls, we know that as you root for the home team, sometimes you want more than just peanuts and Cracker Jack. And while we do deliver on your favorite ballpark classics, we're proud to offer a packed lineup of everything you need to make your next meal a home run. Ingalls, a proud sponsor of Furman Baseball and the official grocery store of Furman Athletics. Go Dins!
The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point offers a dining experience that will have you coming back for more time and time again. Everything is freshly made on site, including the different varieties of bread and all the baked goodies. And the menu, Atlanta Bread Company offers a wide variety from hot soups and chili to hot and cold sandwiches and paninis. Even breakfast selections topped off with your choice of piping hot coffees. Come see for yourself. You'll love it. The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point, proud sponsors of the Furman Paladins and the Dan Scott Show. All right, welcome back to the show. We are just getting things cranked up here on the program. Dan Scott and Forrest Stulting, as usual, here on this Tuesday. Basketball note before we get into the polls. I mentioned we recorded the All Den podcast episode 5 yesterday, and one of the revelations that Bob Ritchie dropped on us yesterday was that Trey Clark, the sophomore, has decided to take a red shirt this season. And the thinking behind that was, as much as he's improved, and the improvement from the end of last year to the beginning of this year apparently has been rather dramatic, the backcourt is just so full with 3 seniors taking up most of the minutes, plus Jordan Lyons coming off the bench as a sophomore, that it will benefit Trey and the program longer term if he takes the red shirt this year. So that's going to happen. Maybe one other red shirt. He said they haven't made that decision yet, but apparently if they do red shirt somebody else, at least right now, it doesn't look like that would be Noah Gurley. Mm-hmm. It would be one of the other freshmen if it happens.
And that would only leave Alex Hunter because he's only their freshman.
Yeah.
That on the squad. So, and hearing from some things from that camp as well, that it sounded like Alex Hunter was going to be the backup point guard. But when you have Sibley, J.D. Fowler, and Lyons bring the ball up, it's not imperative to have someone like Alex Hunter on the squad.
And he said that that backup point guard has been one area that it has, I don't want to use the word concern, but one thing they've been looking at. Mm-hmm. So much to the point that he again told you got to listen to these podcasts because you get all kinds of great information. Oh, yeah. He again told us that Daniel Fowler has been working at the point.
Yeah, he actually got some significant time at the point last Saturday against Gardner-Webb. And so I think he's a great ball handler, makes really good decisions, under control, knows the team and the offense really well. So he's a great fit at that spot, I'd say.
Yeah, so that's just a little basketball news. You can find the All Den podcast online at iTunes.com. I'm not sure if it's at FurmanPaladins.com or not.
If you go to their Instagram, you just click on it's on their homepage, the link to the iTunes.
Yeah, and I think on Twitter too, on the Furman basketball homepage on Twitter, you can get it from there. So we do one about every 2 weeks. We also talked, besides Bob Ritchie and Jeff Beans yesterday, we also talked with Director of Recruiting Tyler Lewis, who of course was a point guard at Butler before coming into this program. So he's got some good genes, and I also asked him about maybe a little on-court competition between he and Dwight Perry.
Oh yeah, that's some good basketball right there.
And Tyler was not real shy about his response. I'll just kind of leave it at that.
It's a nice little nugget right there. I like it.
All right, the new rankings are out for the FBS and FBS obviously, but the FCS as well. And in the stats FCS poll, the Paladins with the off week advanced, and they actually advanced in the coaches poll
a little bit.
They're still in the others receiving votes. That one we'll get to in a moment because it is still more than a little quizzical, we'll say.
You got that right.
But the stats FCS poll is where we'll start.
Yep. Atop that poll is no surprise, James Madison. They garner all 162 first-place votes. Coming in at number 2 is Jacksonville State after North Dakota State lost this past weekend to South Dakota State, 33-21. At number 3, Central Arkansas. Sam Houston State at 4. North Dakota State 5. South Dakota State number 6. So a little bit of questionable spots right there. I think those two should have been flip-flopped possibly. Then Elon 7, Wofford 8, North Carolina A&T 9, South Dakota number 10 after they lost this past week and they dropped 4 spots. Sanford number 16, Furman 21, Western Carolina 22, Kennesaw State number 23. I've seen some projections that we will face Kennesaw State in the first round, and that will be the winner. We'll play Elon, so that's just some projections of where things could go come tournament time if things fall the way they have been. Western Illinois 11, Stony Brook 12, Grambling State 13, Weber State 14, Southern Utah 15. New Hampshire is at 18 as well. Eastern Washington, they're at 19. They're at 5-4 though, so they're going to have trouble qualifying for the tournament with only 5 wins at this juncture in the season. Any surprises or qualms, Dan, about this?
You can always get into, like you said, with North Dakota State, South Dakota State. South Dakota State won that matchup for the second straight year. North Dakota State, still obviously one of the elite teams in the FCS, probably living a little bit on their reputation.
Yeah.
There. But the interesting thing about the poll is just like you said with Eastern Washington and I think is it Northern Arizona that also has 5 wins?
They have 6-3 at 24.
Okay, there's somebody else out there who has 5 wins.
You and I.
Right.
You and I.
Yeah, so you have to get 7 to qualify for the playoffs. So as you're looking at these polls and you're kind of losing your mind over where Furman is and where they may be, where they should be as opposed to where they are. Remember two things. Number one, the Sagarin rankings, which take everything into consideration, have Furman at number 13 this week. That's something the committee is going to be looking at heavily.
Yes.
And secondly, you have to get 7 wins to qualify for the playoffs. So some of these teams that are in the rankings right now ahead of Furman, who we think shouldn't be ahead of Furman, perhaps, may not even make the playoffs because they're not going to get to the 7-win plateau.
So I'll cut out a few of those teams and give Furman a better chance to win. But I'll say this, Dan, that with the possibility of 4 SoCon teams getting in, us beating Western Carolina was going to be great because I think it's going to be a battle between obviously us, Sanford, and Western to get those spots in the playoffs. And so if we can beat Sanford and having already beaten Western Carolina, that pretty much I think locks us into the playoffs.
And so I don't know that we'll get 4 this year.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last year was the first time that it ever happened, and it happened in the expanded 24-team playoff field. I mean, it's possible. A lot of things can happen still. A lot of things have to shake out, but you just take care of business if you're the Paladins. You win this week, you got your 7 wins. And then if you can beat Sanford and Birmingham and win a share of the conference championship, you don't get the automatic bid, but there's no way they can even think about keeping you out there.
That'll lock you in.
You win one of these next 2, you still feel pretty good about your chances, but there's always that little doubt that comes. They say that never put your future in the hands of a group of people who meet behind closed doors and call themselves a committee. So just win the next 2 and don't worry about it.
And I'll say this too, Dan. Those top 6 or 7 teams have pretty much all been there for the entire season. So I think it's going to just be a race to see who can knock off one of those top 6 teams in the playoff, because those are the more dominating teams for the entire season this year.
Yeah, well, again, we've still got 2 weeks of football to go, and we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that my Thanksgiving weekend basketball plans get altered. And the only way that happens is if we're in
the playoffs. Yeah, I'm going to New York for Thanksgiving, and so I've already told my parents that there's a possibility that I'll need to leave Friday or possibly earlier than that to get down here and get to a football game. Hopefully, I have to get out of New York early.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The coaches poll.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Little more baffling to say the least.
Yeah. So the top 6 or 7 schools are all the same. Wofford at 8. Elon at 9, so those are flip-flopped from the Stats FCS poll. South Dakota at number 10, they fell 4 spots for losing. Grambling State, Weber State, Western Illinois, 11-13. Sanford at 14, New Hampshire at 16, Eastern Washington at 21, Western Carolina at 25. So you have 3 SoCon schools in the top 25. Northern Iowa is the first. Others receiving votes with 51. Richmond 38. Furman has 37. Montana 27, and Villanova 24. And the Citadel still garnering 9 votes in this week's coaches poll. So just a few places where you can really scratch your head at who's making these votes.
Yeah, and again, you play the head-to-head game like we were talking about with North Dakota State, South Dakota State. You play the head-to-head game with Furman and Western Carolina, and you go on the road. You beat I think they were ranked 18th at the time, so you beat a top 20 team on the road. And you don't just beat them, you dominate them. 28-6, and they scored a touchdown against the second and third team defense, basically on the final possession of the game. Who's doing the voting, and what are they paying attention to?
Yeah,
that's the thing that comes up. But again, you can allow yourself to get all tied up and upset over that, or you can just say, you know what? Ultimately, most of that stuff doesn't matter. Scott Keeler pointed out just a moment ago that what's the guy's name here? The thing is moving. Craig Haley, who is a FCS guru, according to Scott, has Furman at number 15 in the power poll there, I think, for Athlon. So it's when you take all of the computer models and all the strength of schedule and everything else together, Furman is firmly entrenched right in the middle of what would be a 2014 playoff, somewhere between 13, maybe 15, and 16. So you got to like your chances, but all of this stuff doesn't matter.
Yep. You still got to win.
If you don't win these final two games, you can remove all doubt by keeping the streak alive and winning these last two games. And if you do that, the conversation is not going to be if, the conversation is going to be where.
Yep, and that's the more
in
important.
The first
that's
round.
the more important question in my eyes, Dan.
So
sure.
and Clay Hendricks was talking about that as far back as a couple of weeks ago. You just take all the other distractions, take all the polls and everything that the coaches say they don't pay attention to anyway, which we know is kind of a half truth. And you put all that aside, and you know one thing. That if you keep winning, you control your own destiny as far as a playoff berth. And the Paladins, winners of 6 straight, you get this one this week, you're eligible as far as needing the 7 wins. And then that sets up a game in Birmingham where you have a chance to take all doubt and remove it completely.
That's what you want to have come a week before Thanksgiving, Dan. So we'll see what happens. Moving to the FBS polls, the AP Top 25 has Alabama at number 1 with 56 votes, Georgia at number 2 with 5 votes for number 1 spots, and then Notre Dame, Clemson, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Miami, TCU, Washington, and Auburn to round out that top 10. Michigan State climbed 11 spots to number 13 after their big win against Penn State this weekend. And Penn State dropped 9 spots. Excuse me, man. Iowa State dropped 10 spots after losing this weekend to West Virginia. There's 4 teams that are ranked that weren't ranked last week. Michigan at 21, South Florida at 22, West Virginia at 23, and Iowa at number 25 after their big win against Ohio State. And to me, Dan, this is a 9-team race for the playoffs. Would you agree with that? Because you have 9 teams have 1 loss or 0 losses.
Yeah, and I think 9 might be too many, quite honestly.
Yep.
Unless we see multiple teams garner a second loss. The fly in the ointment, just like the BCS always had a fly in the ointment.
Yep.
The fly in the ointment for this 4-team playoff field from a Power 5 conference standpoint is Notre Dame. Because if Notre Dame gets in, then at least 2 conferences are going to be left out. And if Notre Dame gets in and Alabama and Georgia get in from the SEC, then 3 of the Power 5 conferences are going to be left out of a 4-team playoff. That in and of itself is an argument that could spur a quicker look at advancing the playoff field to 8 teams. And, it's, as we talked to Dave Glenn last week, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. He thinks, especially now with the FBI investigation in college basketball and all the money issues that are going on in that investigation, he thinks that doing it before the current contract is up would really look bad from a public relations standpoint and look like nothing but a money grab. But I'm telling you, Notre Dame, if they get in this thing and 2 of the power conferences are left out, or Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia get in and 3 of the 5 Power 5s are left out, then there are going to be people who are going to be scratching their head and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Oh, yeah.
I'll
say this too, Dan, is that assuming Alabama and Georgia win out until the SEC championship game, I think that there's a possibility that one of those, the loser of that game will not get in because the committee will have to put either Georgia or Alabama at number 3 because they're not going to put them at 1 and 4 because they don't want that matchup 2 weeks in a row. They're going to have to put them at number 3, and that could sway the committee to bump them out of the Final Four rankings. And so I think having that in mind,
I don't think that'll matter. I think if they think they're one of the best 4 teams, it doesn't matter where they go, and if they play 2 weeks in a row, they play 2 weeks in a row. I don't think that will play into it at all. If they go into an SEC championship game both undefeated, and obviously one of them's going to win and one of them's going to lose, there's a news flash for you. The team that loses that championship game is still going to be in the 14 playoff. If they're sitting there at 1-2 right now, and they lose the conference championship game, whichever one does, they'll still be in the play. Now, if one of them loses prior to that and suffers a second loss, then okay.
Sure.
But I'm just telling you, this whole Notre Dame not being in a conference thing is rearing its ugly head again inside the framework of this football playoff, this 14 playoff, and if 3 of the 4 conferences or 3 of the 5 power conferences are left out, that's going to start the conversation quicker than just about anything else.
No, I agree, and I think the one conference does not have much leeway right now would be the Big Ten, because Wisconsin is their highest ranking team in that, and they haven't played anybody this year, and they'll only have to beat, I think, Michigan State, which is they're in the top 25 at number 13 right now, but still that's not enough for me to put them in that top 4. But outside of that, I think the Big 12's got a good reason for that. Maybe even the Pac-12, they might not have a good argument for them being in the top 4 as well. So I think maybe the argument of saying leaving out 2 or possibly 3 of these conferences may be justified to some degree, especially for the Big 10 and the Pac-12.
Well, that sounds good.
Sure, yeah. But in terms of the commissioners for those respective conferences.
The idea was you were going to have a situation where a minimum of 3 were going to be in every year, and in a perfect world in their minds, 4. One from, and so there'd be 1 conference left out. You start leaving out 3 of the 5. I don't care what the strength of schedule. I don't care what it is. Notre Dame will be looked at as the fly in the ointment. And I go back to the ridiculous way they were treated in the BCS. Notre Dame had this deal with the BCS. If they had X number of wins, they got into a BCS spot. And if they missed the BCS, they got paid $1 million. Where do I sign up? Where do I sign up for that deal? If I underperform and miss the playoffs or miss a bonus structure at work, I get paid $1 million. It's
not a bad deal there, Dan.
I'm there, dudes. Let's go. Sign me up for that. I know there are a lot of Notre Dame fans out there, and I always, when I disparage Notre Dame publicly, I always do so with just a little bit of sorrow in my heart because of my good friend Tim Beret, the SID over at Clemson, who's a Notre Dame grad and is one of the finest people that I've ever met. But the bottom line is that there's no excuse in this day and age for Notre Dame to be treated differently and special apart from every other school in the realm of big-time college football. There's just simply no excuse for it. And I think if they end up taking one of these spots and 3 of the conferences are left out, then you're going to see that used as an impetus to expand that playoff field to 8 teams. And when that expands, I think what you'll see, the 5 conference champions will be automatic bids, and there'll be 3 at large.
I'm okay with that, I think.
Yeah, I got no trouble with it either. Yeah. So let's see what happens.
So I guess my only concern is that I don't want to get too big because I think there's a significant drop-off once you get below that top 10, and I think it will get those games a little diluted.
No, to me, at the top level, an 8-team playoff is perfect.
I'm right there with you. I'm saying beyond those 8 teams, though. Yeah. I'm saying don't expand it to 16 teams like the FCS because I think that'll make those games a little more diluted.
Well, the FCS is at 24 now.
Yeah.
So they've expanded and expanded again. But no, I agree with you. I think 8 teams is perfect because you can always argue. If Team X is number 8, all right, maybe 9 or 10 could have been there, but and just like you get an argument sometimes with Team 4, okay, maybe 5, 6, or 7 had a legitimate argument,
sure.
But there are not going to be a whole lot of teams who have a legitimate argument to be inside that elite group.
Like you see here, there's only 9 teams with 1 or fewer losses in the
so wouldn't an 8-team playoff be pretty sweet right now?
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Set up things about as perfect as they can get.
But it's coming, and it'll come sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, we have to deal with Notre Dame screwing up everything. So anyway, we need to step out for a break. We'll come back, and we'll spend some time on a little bit of Major League Baseball stuff because the finalists for all the awards that will be handed out starting next week were announced yesterday. And then also the ERA Committee, used to be the Veterans Committee, announced its 9 players and 1 executive they're considering. We'll talk about how that works, and then Forrest and I are going to maybe cast our votes and see if we can come up with a consensus as to who may get in, if anybody. This is the Dan Scott Show, and we'll be back with more right after this. Don't go away.
Stuck in a state of falling behind? Struggling to keep up with your kids, finances, insurance? Then let State Farm agent Steve Borkland in Traveler's Rest help you simplify and get to a better state. Because with Steve handling your auto, home, and life insurance, you'll have more time for everything else. More money, too, because adding State Farm policies could mean earning discounts worth up to 40%. That's money Steve can help you put towards a college savings plan. Call State Farm agent Steve Borkland today and get to a better state with State Farm.
Let me tell you something, Cowboy. This rookie can really bring the heat.
He's smoky and spicy with a Chipotle style all his own.
It's a new Montgomery Inn Chipotle barbecue sauce. Make it a part of your home team.
Available now at your neighborhood grocer or online at CincyFavorites.com.
Looking for a good lunch spot in the Traveler's Rest area? The Cafe at Williams Hardware is your place. Williams Hardware has food for the whole family, from the famous Reuben to the barbecue chicken quesadilla and their daily lunch specials, which includes the award-winning BLT unpimiented cheese with pepper jelly, served Tuesday to Thursday. Williams Hardware also serves breakfast on Saturdays from 8 to 11, perfect before Furman home game. And don't forget their gift shop, which offers items for anyone on your list. Go see your friends at the Cafe at Williams Hardware, 13 South Main Street in downtown TR. Full menu and operating hours at the Cafe at WilliamsHardware.com.
Say you've got a busted phone or tablet screen. Time to get a new device? Nope. Time to give it CPR. CPR cell phone repair at Cherrydale can repair almost any phone or tablet screen on the market and usually can do it same day. In fact, if you have an iPhone, the fix usually takes less than an hour. CPR cell phone repair also can fix computers and gaming systems, both screens and hard drives. And they sell refurbished devices and new accessories. Stop by and see the new owner, Janet Culver, today and check them out on Facebook. That's CPR cell phone repair at Cherrydale, 864-282-9097. Give it CPR today. All right, welcome back. It's 10:38 as we continue here on this Tuesday edition of the program. Dan Scott and Forrest Stulting rocking and rolling with you here in studio. It's getting darker and hazier outside. Of course, we got some rain supposed to be coming in the next couple of days.
Yeah, a lot of rainfall right now, actually, I believe. So,
you know, it was funny. I was driving home yesterday. I was here until a little bit after 4 o'clock, watched a little bit of basketball practice, and it was on my way home, and as it was approaching 5 o'clock, as I was getting close to home, and I thought to myself, man, you know, it is darker than it should be. And then I realized, oh, yeah, we've set the clocks back.
Oh, yeah. So, it comes quick and sneak up on you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was already hazy and overcast anyway. And the point I was thinking to myself, like, is it going to rain? And it's not supposed to. But, you know, I'm not always the sharpest knife in the drawer sometimes. Let's talk some baseball.
Let's do it.
And try to get through this rather quickly because there's quite a bit to digest.
All right, the The finalists from the multiple awards last night for Major League Baseball were announced. Starting with the AL MVP, you have Jose Altuve, Aaron Judge, and Jose Ramirez. No surprise there. There were a few surprises on the NL side. You have Paul Goldschmidt, Giancarlo Stanton, and Joey Votto. So 2 of those players were on non-playoff teams, and that's a really good sight to see, from my opinion, Dan. I know you being a Reds fan, you're happy Joey Votto is getting some recognition for his outstanding year.
Mm-hmm.
The Cy Young Award in the American League, you have Corey Kluber, Chris Sale, and Luis Severino of the Yankees. No surprise there once again. For the NL, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg. That's going to be a tight race, but I think Kershaw will finish off that one with his 4th Cy Young Award. Manager of the Year in the American League, Terry Francona of the Indians, A.J. Hinch of the Astros, Paul Molitor of the Twins. Personally, I would vote for Paul Molitor, but that's just me. National League, you have Bud Black, Torey Lovello, and Dave Roberts. I'll go with Torey Lovello of the D-backs. Rookie of the Year in the American League, Andrew Benintendi, Aaron Judge, and Trey Mancini. This is a runaway for Aaron Judge here. The National League, you have another runaway. Josh Bell, Cody Bellinger, and Paul DeJong. Cody Bellinger should get that one pretty unanimously. And those were the top awards for Major League Baseball that were announced. Those will be announced next week, I believe, on the 14th and 13th.
Yeah, I think they start with Rookie of the Year and stair-step all the way up to Most Valuable Player. So we'll be looking forward to that. Now, let's get to the former Veterans Committee, the ERA Committee now. They are looking – I think they do this every 2 years. Is that right?
Every year, but there's 4 eras they look at. This year it will be the modern era from 1970 to 1987.
Okay.
Then it goes to the current era from 1988 to present, and they'll vote on those players from each era.
So it rotates
year in and year out. Yep.
All right. So they have put forth 9 player candidates and one very interesting executive that I've got some thoughts about when we get to it. But who are the 9 players that they have put up for the committee's induction, perhaps, into the Hall of Fame?
You have Steve Garvey, Tommy John, Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly, Jack Morris, Dale Murphy, Dave Parker, Ted Simmons, Louis Tiant, and Alan Trammell. And then the one executive they have is Marvin Miller, and he had some pretty significant impact on how the modern game is played outside the diamond in terms of free agents and how the players' union has been established. I know you have more thoughts on that, Dan.
I think of everybody on that list, if you're talking about sheer impact on the game of baseball, there's no question that Marvin Miller had far more impact on baseball than any one of those players, and maybe even all of those players combined.
I completely agree with that.
Because it was Marvin Miller, like it or hate it, it was Marvin Miller who made baseball's players' union the strongest union, not only in all professional sports, but probably in all of America. And why that every single time they went on strike or there was a work stoppage from 1969 to 1994, that they got pretty much everything they asked for in negotiations. Now, thankfully, there has been labor peace. I think baseball has seen the bigger picture. The union and management works together on many things that they used to fight each other on. Now, although I will say this, in the last negotiation, I started to see what may be some cracks of that acrimony setting back in, and I hope that's not the case, because I pray that they learned their lesson after 1994. But it's because of Marvin Miller and because of the stance that he took and the hard-nosed stance that he took that the Players Union became what it was. Completely changed the game, completely revolutionized the game. And again, some say not for good. And you can make a strong argument for that because of the way salaries has escalated and free agency and everything else that he fought for as the basis of his platform. But if you are talking about sheer impact on the game, there are very few people in the history of the game that have made an impact that can rival that of Marvin Miller. Now, whether you want him to be in the Hall of Fame because of that impact is, it may be a different subject.
Sure.
But if we're talking about somebody who is up there as far as the movers and shakers in the history of the game of baseball, you can't have a list that does not include Marvin Miller.
I completely agree with that. And he is, for me, the one shoo-in that should garner everyone's vote on that committee. And there's 16 members on the committee, and they each get 2 votes, and you have to get 12 votes to get into the Hall of Fame. So it's going to be tough to get multiple players and that executive in there. And so I think, in my opinion, the one shoo-in, as I said, is Marvin Miller.
Yeah, but he's been on this. He's been up for this before.
Yeah,
you would have thought he was a shoo-in. And the guys who are on the committee voting now, the former players who are on the committee now, are ones who, by and large, who benefited in the early days anyway from what he did to help develop that players union. So it's kind of interesting that he's not in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see now what happens. As far as the list of players go, I was told a long time ago, and I've heard this argument before, that if you have to make an argument for somebody to get into the Hall of Fame, that there's a pretty good chance they don't belong there.
That's fair.
Now, having said that, there are a couple of people I think probably do belong there who are not in. Jim Cott is one that comes to mind, and he's not even on that list. Tommy John, I could see maybe Tommy John being there, not only because of the career, but because of the pioneering surgery he had that resurrected his career. I mean, and there are guys there you can argue for. Dave Parker's up on your screen. Alan Trammell had a great career in Detroit. I'm just not sure there's a consensus guy among that list of players.
No, I agree, Dan. I think out of these 9 players, for me, there's only 2 you can really strike off immediately, and that's Don Mattingly and Dale Murphy. They should not have the longevity needed in order to have that Hall of Fame status, I believe. Both of them have just over 2,000 hits, which, in my opinion, is not what's needed in that era of baseball and forward, needing to get the Hall of Fame status.
Dale Murphy came up 2 home runs shy of 400.
That's not
in
bad,
his career,
for sure. Yeah.
What was a phenomenal player when he was at his peak. But again, are they Hall of Fame numbers? Probably not.
And for me, it really comes down to 2 players, and that's Dave Parker and Alan Trammell. Dave Parker, his slash line is 290, 339, 471 with 2,700 hits, 526 doubles, 339 home runs. He's a 7-time All-Star, 3-time Gold Glover, 3-time Silver Slugger, and 2-time batting champion. And I think Alan Trammell, he is one of the great shortstops of all time. He was overshadowed by Cal Ripken for the majority of his career. Not as prevalent numbers as Parker, but he hit 285, 352, 415 with 2,365 hits, 412 doubles, 185 home runs, 236 stolen bases. But I think here is where his glove comes in, because he has one of the greatest shortstops and defensively, not only of his time, but of all time, essentially. I think you have to consider how he played defensively up the middle. I think it was one of the great tandems of all time. What's his name?
Lou Whitaker.
Lou Whitaker, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think with those numbers in consideration, with considering his defensive metrics and how well he was at shortstop, I think you have to consider those 2. And I think that might be where they fall short. They might split the vote, because I think, in my opinion, those are the 2 most well-deserving players on this list.
Yeah, I still believe that it's a travesty that Dave Concepcion is not in the Hall of Fame at the shortstop position, because I think he was judged unfairly as the shortstop position changed at the end of his career and became more of a offensive kind of power hitting position, like Cal Ripken brought it to, and then you had the guys behind him like Nomar Garciaparra and Alex Rodriguez, who came up as a shortstop, and some of those other guys who were power hitting shortstops. When you look at Concepcion's numbers, what he did in the era in which he played, he was, and that's how you're supposed to judge these guys. How were they in the era that they played.
Yep.
So, but anyway, that's another story for another time. To me, if you're talking sheer impact, the biggest name on that list is Marvin Miller.
No, I agree. I think he's my one firm vote I would vote for if I was on this committee. I think I had trouble voting for either Trammell or Parker in that one. So that's where I would have trouble figuring out who to vote for with my second vote.
All right, let's step out for another break. Doesn't look like Brian Bratton's going to be able to make it up because they had a late staff meeting. And if he can't make it in today, then we will find maybe a time for him later on this week. But so we'll have Wednesday through Friday. We should have a bevy of guests in the next 3 days, our usual guest and some guests specifically for Furman and the Citadel, which is coming up on Saturday. But let's take a final break. We'll step out and come back to put a wrap on things here on this edition of the Dan Scott Show. Don't go away.
Looking for a good lunch spot in the Travelers Rest area? The Cafe at Williams Hardware is your place. Williams Hardware has food for the whole family, from the famous Reuben to the barbecue chicken quesadilla and their daily lunch specials, which includes the award-winning BLT on pimento cheese with pepper jelly, served Tuesday to Thursday. Williams Hardware also serves breakfast on Saturdays from 8 to 11, perfect before Furman home game. And don't forget their gift shop, which offers items for anyone on your list. Go see your friends at the Cafe at Williams Hardware, 13 South Main Street in downtown TR. Full menu and operating hours at the Cafe at WilliamsHardware.com.
Say you've got a busted phone or tablet screen. Time to get a new device? Nope. Time to give it CPR. CPR cell phone repair at Cherrydale can repair almost any phone or tablet screen on the market and usually can do it same day. In fact, if you have an iPhone, the fix usually takes less than an hour. CPO cell phone repair also can fix computers and gaming systems, both screens and hard drives. And they sell refurbished devices and new accessories. Stop by and see the new owner, Janet Culver, today and check them out on Facebook. That's CPR cell phone repair at Cherrydale, 864-282-9097. Give it CPR today.
Hey Furman fans, it's baseball season. Here at Ingalls, we know that as you root for the home team, sometimes you want more than just peanuts and Cracker Jack. And while we do deliver on your favorite ballpark classics, we're proud to offer a packed lineup of everything you need to make your next meal a home run. Ingalls, a proud sponsor of Furman Baseball and the official grocery store of Furman Athletics. Go Dins!
The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point offers a dining experience that will have you coming back for more time and time again. Everything is freshly made on site, including the different varieties of bread and all the baked goodies. And the menu, Atlanta Bread Company offers a wide variety from hot soups and chili to hot and cold sandwiches and paninis. Even breakfast selections topped off with your choice of piping hot coffees. Come see for yourself. You'll love it. The Atlanta Bread Company at Cherrydale Point, proud sponsors of the Furman Paladins and the Dan Scott Show. Welcome back to the program. Final segment at 10:53. Let me remind you quickly about the Greenville Steakhouse, and that is Hall's Chop House downtown, where, as I said yesterday, if you're going to call yourself the Any City Steakhouse, then you better have a piece of meat that's going to back it up.
Oh, yes.
And Hall's Chop House does. The menu starts with Allen Brothers Prime Steaks out of Chicago, and then everything else falls into place behind that. The food is simply fantastic. If you follow on social media, you get to see these pictures of these incredible steak dinners that they put out. So they're on Twitter, both the original Halls and Halls Chop House Greenville, the originals in Charleston. They're on Instagram, so you can see these pictures, which makes you even want to go more than perhaps you already do. But the bottom line is that the food is fantastic. They also have incredible meeting space, whether it's a Christmas party coming up, corporate event, whatever it is, they can handle it. So check them out. Open 7 nights a week for dinner and for brunch on Sunday. Live music the entire time. The Greenville Steakhouse, downtown Greenville, Hall's Chop House, and tell them you heard about them here on today's show. All right, thing number 3.
Yes, sir. I want to give a shout out to Gordon Hayward. He fractured his ankle in the first game of the season, not only 5 minutes in to his Boston Celtics debut. And not even a month after fracturing his ankle and undergoing successful surgery, Hayward is already back in the gym. Danny Ainge, the GM of the Celtics, released a photo of Hayward practicing his jump shot while in a chair.
Yep, I saw
sitting
that.
down. Just unbelievable stuff. This shows commitment, determination, desire, and the unwillingness to let the circumstances control him. And I think we can learn a lot from Gordon Hayward in that photo and his determination to get back on the court as soon as possible. So,
well, and he's admitted that is probably not going to be this year.
No way, yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
But the just the fact that he's already working this close or this recently after surgery, just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean it's a testament to why the great ones are great.
You got that right, Dan. It's just unbelievable stuff seeing him in the gym trying to get some work in, and props to him.
Want to also make mention, as I did at the top of the show, I don't know if you've seen this story involving Josh Pastner, the basketball coach at Georgia Tech, who had the great run at Memphis. And naturally, it's now not right where it should be here. Oh, here it is, right here at the top where I should have looked to begin with. If you saw the headlines recently, 2 Georgia Tech players have been suspended indefinitely after Pastner and the Yellow Jackets self-reported those players receiving impermissible benefits, not from a coach or a booster, but from a guy who turns out to be a friend of Josh Pastner. And now that friend, Ron Bell, an Arizona resident and described as a longtime friend of Pastner, told CBS Sports he's the guy who provided those benefits, and that Pastner and Georgia Tech significantly underreported how much those benefits were worth. Josh Okogie and Tadrick Jackson were the 2 players. They have been suspended indefinitely after it was announced last Thursday that Georgia Tech self-reported those violations. According to the school, Jackson accepted benefits totaling less than $525, while Okogie accepted benefits totaling less than $750. But Bell turned documents over to CBS Sports showing that he spent $233.40 on a plane ticket for Okogie, sent him 3 pairs of shoes totaling around $444 and 2 shirts totaling $56. And then for Bell, provided documents to show he spent $233.40 on a plane ticket, $271 for shoes, and ordered him Knicks apparel worth $80. And those add up to around the estimates Georgia Tech self-reported.
Yep.
Bell says, though, that's not all. He says he also spent, quote, about $500, unquote, on groceries for the players when they stayed at his house from May 19th through the 13th and provided photo evidence of the players swimming in his pool. He said the NCAA also should be considering a 220-mile round trip ride from Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport to Bell's house in Tucson, which he said he provided for both players. He said after adding up other various expenses, including a $120 meal said he had with the 2 in Atlanta, Bell, who works in real estate, says he's definitely given Okogie more than $750 and Jackson more than $525, as was reported in those impermissible benefits. Now, the caveat to all this, and on CBS Sports, by the way, they have a picture of the 2 in a pool that's supposed to be at his
Having
house.
some fun, it looks like, as well.
Yeah, chilling, as they say. But Bell is a recovering addict who spent nearly 4 years in prison from 2009 to 2013. He says that he spoke to Pastner about this and said that he was going to tell everybody, I guess tell the world, that Pastner underreported this. And according to Bell, Pastner's response was, nobody will believe you because you're an addict and you've been to prison.
Wow.
So just keep an eye on this story, because what looked like something that may be simple, and usually when these things happen, the players have to make restitution to a charity or something, and may end up missing a game or two. But there could be more to this story, so we'll kind of follow it and see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be another bad day for college basketball if these players are suspended for more than what they are already due to get suspended for, and just another instance of a coach lying to the NCAA, which is something that needs to be changed quickly.
Yeah, I would agree.
So,
got a couple on this dates?
I sure do, and one or two in baseball and one not in baseball. I don't want to get your take on it because I was not born during this non-baseball event. In 1963, Elson Howard, the catcher for the New York Yankees, was the first African-American player to win the AL MVP award.
You weren't born during that event either.
I was born there during any of these events.
Okay. And I wasn't born during that one.
Oh, wow.
So.
Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
1967.
The year I was born.
Orlando Cepeda wins the MVP, and he's the second NL player to win unanimously. He was a Cardinal and the first baseman. And then the non-baseball one, in 1991, Magic Johnson announces his retirement due to contracting the disease AIDS, HIV.
The HIV virus.
Yeah, so tell me
Remember
about that.
Well, I was working in living in Titusville, Florida, and was doing some part-time stuff at a little daytime only radio station down there, and freelance writing for a weekly newspaper. And I remember the guy who managed the radio station telling us that this was obviously pre-internet. Pre-widespread cell phones, there was no text messages, so and we all generally considered this guy to be full of crap most of the time. He was not the most trustworthy guy, but told us that was going to happen, and sure enough, it happened.
Wow.
And I just remember watching the press conference, and like most of the other basketball-loving world at the time, because at that time I was still watching the NBA. Larry Bird was still with the Celtics, and all of these things. I was stunned, and it was, I guess, one of the earliest revelations in my lifetime, and I was 24 years old at the time. One of the earliest revelations in my lifetime of what a life of excess when you're a celebrity and you think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the kind of consequences that you can face. You know, when Magic Johnson, has to retire because of contracting a virus that up to that point had 100% death rate, pretty much. You know, and that was about the time they started to find some drugs that could at least delay it, and he's been able to live obviously a much longer and relatively healthy life. It's not turned into full-blown AIDS, but he still carries that virus. It was a shock. And the other thing that I remember vividly about that is as he is at the podium making this announcement to the world, his wife is standing by him. And the stories coming out about him being with 5-6 women at one time on the road, basically it's just and his wife standing by him, and sarcastically you might have said that, well, she was standing by his wallet, and maybe that's the case, but as far as I know, they're still together, and they made it through that. So, but that's whether they did or didn't, that was one of the indelible moments I took from that. Is he's doing all this, and his wife is standing right there. So
shows a lot of courage and love on her part.
Yeah, and it obviously had to be hard for him to stand in front of the cameras and humble himself to the entire world and admit basically that we saw Magic Johnson, we didn't see Irvin Johnson.
Yeah.
And Irvin Johnson obviously was chasing a lot of demons, among other things.
Absolutely.
That he was chasing at the time. So, but yeah, I remember the day well. I was in Titusville, Florida at the time.
The trivia question.
Yeah.
The topic is Furman football versus Citadel, and the question was, when was the most recent season in which Furman and the Citadel did not play?
I saw 3 guesses. They were 1941, 1945, and 1976, and you said one of the 3 was correct.
Yep. The one in the middle, 1945, the last year of World War II.
Interesting. So they've played every year since then.
Yep.
All right, there you go. That is going to wrap it up. Our apologies for Brian not being able to make it, Brian Bratton, but he was keeping a running commentary with us that they were in a staff meeting, and trust me, Clay Hendricks meetings trump the Dan Scott Show.
No
I know
doubt.
that's hard to believe, but it does. And then we'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same place. Dave Glenn will be here. Maybe Brian will be able to join us. On Thursday, we'll be looking at getting someone else in, perhaps Hunter Reed if his schedule allows, and Doug Allison to talk about the upcoming soccer tournament here on campus. Friday, Mike Legg, the play-by-play voice, if his schedule allows, although he's doing his own show at that time, but maybe we can find a way to link up our shows.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to him about that and see what his thoughts are and go from there. But anyway, that's all ahead. Right now, we're going to turn you back to whatever you were doing and hope that you have a great rest of your day. See you later.
See you later.
Until tomorrow, for Forrest, I'm Dan. God bless you. So long, everybody. We will see you on Wednesday.